Briahna, what's on your radar?
Well, Robbie, I gotta ask, did Elon Musk really fall for a Ligma Johnson prank on his own website yesterday? Are you online enough to even know or care what a Ligma Johnson prank is? Well, the good news is that this radar isn't really about a prank. It's about new evidence and a mounting sea of evidence that, as a boss, Elon Musk might be lacking and potentially liable. This twisted Twitter tale began yesterday when a Twitter employee named Holly Thorleifson tagged Elon Musk in a tweet thread explaining that he wasn't sure if he had been fired, along with the 200 or so employees who were axed a little over a week ago. He had lost access to his work computer, which was a clue, but couldn't get confirmation from HR as to whether or not he was still employed. Maybe if enough people retweet, you'll answer me here, he tweeted as a last resort. Now, as the thread went viral, Musk responded, asking, "What work have you been doing?" Hallie, apparently concerned that sharing his workflow might violate certain confidentiality rules, asked for confirmation that he wouldn't be punished for answering Musk's question. And after Musk confirmed that it was okay, he explained that he had worked on a SaaS, or software as service contract, among other duties. Musk then asked Hallie to be more specific about the SaaS contract, and here's where it first gets a little weird. When Hallie replied that he was working on a contract called Figma, Musk responded with 2 laugh cry emojis, apparently because he thought Hallie was making a joke. You see, Figma sort of sounds like Ligma of the Ligma Johnson prank. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, it's like a Bart Simpson style joke, the kind where he calls into Moe's pub with a name that sort of sounds like a name, but when you put it together, it sounds like something lewd, Ligma Johnson. Anyway, Musk has a history of telling Ligma Johnson jokes, so many observers deduced 2 things. 1, that Musk was so unfamiliar with his own company's design contracts that he didn't recognize the name of one, and 2, that he assumed that Hallie's tweet thread was all just a gag. Musk also disputed Hallie's account of his professional responsibilities before ending with a YouTube video of a scene from the movie Office Space in which, topically, a consultant and a manager looking to lay off staff interrogate one of the staffers about the utility of what he actually does there. You know the scene, the "what would you say you do here" scene? Okay, but Hallie wasn't joking. Moreover, he had finally gotten a response from Twitter's HR confirming that he no longer worked at the company. So now he had a new question for the Twitter CEO. Will you make sure I get paid what I'm owed per my contract? You see, it turns out that Hallie is an award-winning designer who sold his company to Twitter in 2021. And as a consequence of that sale, he negotiated some very favorable terms if he were to be fired. Apparently, the terms of his contract require a huge sum, millions of dollars, to be paid out if he is in fact fired. A sum so big that he's on a do not fire list, according to reporting at Fortune magazine. It's worth noting that Hallie seems like a very decent guy. He intentionally received most of the purchase price for his company's sale to Twitter as salary in order to maximize the tax he would pay in Iceland. Why did he want to maximize his taxes? Well, Hallie sold his company and is telling below market price because of the toll his disability was taking on him. Hallie lives with muscular dystrophy and wanted to pay a high tax out of respect to Iceland, where he's from, for the disability benefits he received there. Because of this arrangement, Hallie was the second highest taxed person in Iceland in 2021. But before Elon realized all this, he lashed out. In now deleted tweets, he accused Hallie of being a prominent, wealthy man who opportunistically confronted Musk to get a big payout. Musk tweeted, "From what I've been told, he's done almost no work for the past 4 months, middle management or otherwise. Despite his claims on Twitter that he did work, it turns out he told HR that he couldn't work because he couldn't type, but was over the same period typing up a storm on Twitter. Yet there are so many people on Twitter defending him. This hurts my faith in humanity." Well, Elon was right about one thing. There were a ton of people on Twitter defending Hallie. Hallie quote tweeted Musk's tweets, claiming he was lying about his disability, and explained in a detailed thread that he lost his ability to use his legs when he was 25 and has been using a wheelchair ever since. He's lost strength in his arms since then and has grown weaker over the years, prompting him to sell his company to Twitter despite making a lot of money on his own. Since working at Twitter, his condition has continued to decline, and he's no longer to use his fingers for extended periods of time without his hands starting to cramp. And while he can write for an hour or two, he's no longer able to work hands-on as a designer. He also clarified that typing on the phone, which requires one finger at a time, is easier for him. Now, this thread of his had over 280,000 likes as of last night. Halley accomplished a very rare thing on the Bird app Indeed, ratioing Elon Musk on his own website. Now, at this point, many folks began pointing out that Musk's tweets were an HR nightmare. He disclosed an employee's disability, he claimed the employee was faking it, and said it was part of why the employee was fired. The disability was part of why the employee was fired, setting up a case for discrimination on top of the huge firing fee that, of course, we now know is part of Halley's contract. Moreover, at least one Twitter user pointed out that although Elon complained about Halley taking to Twitter to resolve his employment questions, Elon himself has argued that social media should be used in exactly this way, in lieu of unions. He's liked a tweet which argued that these days, with social media, you can be your own voice. You don't need to pay someone who makes $250,000 a year to be your voice. If Musk wanted Twitter justice to take the place of unions, well, he certainly got his wish yesterday. Now, this would not be the first time Musk has gotten into trouble for labor violations. In 2019, a judge ruled that a 2018 anti-union tweet from Musk's personal account constituted unfair labor practices under the National Labor Relations Act. And just this year, he was finally cleared of fraud charges stemming from a 2018 tweet indicating that he was taking Tesla private. Perhaps tired of litigation or of losing huge chunks of his fortune to this Twitter investment, Musk quickly changed his tune. Now, initially, he was unapologetic, saying in a now-deleted tweet that he didn't care if it was unwise to insult a former employee in public, writing, "He's the worst, sorry." But Musk soon capitulated, writing, "I would like to apologize to Halley for my misunderstanding of his situation. It was based on things I was told that were untrue or, in some cases, true but not meaningful." He is considering remaining at Twitter. As the kids say, life comes at you fast. Now, apart from being somewhat entertaining Twitter drama, why does all this matter? Well, for one, this episode exposes that unlike most Twitter users, Musk is not just a tweeter. He's an employer and a CEO with obligations to his staff that are people who make his company successful. He can't just tweet out every opinion. His words, and more importantly, his actions, matter. Remember, this whole saga was precipitated by 200 layoffs last week, and the company is now down to fewer than 2,000 workers from the 7,500 who worked there when Musk took it over. Businessmen are often heralded for being job creators, but all too often, companies are bought for profit and management decisions are made not in the interest of improving companies, improving function, improving products, or even growth. Instead, we're faced with mergers, layoffs, and monopolistic practices that are celebrated, oftentimes by the very conservative media figures who claim to value job creation. Just listen to this clip from earlier this week about a prospective airline merger.
This merger that Susan was talking about between Spirit and JetBlue, if I understood her correctly, she's saying the courts are basically blocking that. That's outrageous.
Well, the government.
The government, that's outrageous. You're talking about Spirit and JetBlue. If they merged, they'd still have less than 20% of the market. How could anybody say that this is a monopolistic move? JetBlue is an airline that has cut airline prices. I think this is outrageous.
This administration, big is
exactly. They were against mergers. And by the way, mergers and acquisitions are the way that small businesses become big businesses.
Mergers and acquisitions are how small businesses become businesses, not investment, hard work, just selling yourself off to some venture capital or merging with another monopolistic business. Okay, look, just months after one of the biggest airline disasters in American history, these pundits are arguing that fewer options for consumers, that consolidation, that monopoly, is a good thing. Southwest's scheduling problems were driven largely by a choice to pursue profit, to engage in stock buybacks, instead of investing profits in updated technology that could improve the efficiency of the booking experience and for customers broadly. But again and again, we're told by these corporate media figures to celebrate individual genius, to trust the experts, and to devalue the laborers that make companies great. Yesterday, Elon was exposed as having a flippant disregard for an engineer. The same flippant disregard he's shown for hundreds or thousands of engineers that he's fired since he took over the company. The only difference is that this time he picked on a deeply charitable, wholesome, accomplished person who happened to have won Person of the Year in Iceland and whose contributions to the company are much more difficult to dismiss, especially given that multi-million-dollar firing penalty clause in his contract. But you shouldn't have to be Person of the Year to have your work valued or to get a modicum of respect from your employer. Of course, sometimes there are going to be redundancies. There's going to be layoffs. It's hard to argue that, that guy in that famous Office clip really should have kept his job. But Musk and his allies have been arguing that most, if not all, of the employees fired have been lazy, disposable, and lacking in value. Even when we can see so many of them go above and beyond to help Elon keep his company afloat, like this employee who was fired after going viral for sleeping in the office to help deliver for the company. This saga with Holly demonstrates, at the very least, that the narrative promoted by Musk, that the people who work at Twitter are disposable, has some holes in it. And I hope that folks evaluating the wisdom of Musk's employment decisions do so with just a little more grace going forward.
Yeah, look, I don't know what else to say about it. This was an ugly incident that Musk caused. It was not appropriate behavior for any manager anywhere to behave like this. I'm glad that he apologized and worked it out. He was correct to do so. And Musk says, that it's better to talk to people than communicate via tweet. I honestly hope that is something he takes to heart, because he clearly loves Twitter. He loves sharing memes. He loves engaging the people. But he now owns the company, and his role as owner and manager. And I'm trying to censor him or saying he can be less freewheeling and wild. Again, I think some of the disclosures he's done are in the public benefit. But from a managerial standpoint, he should not. It's just not appropriate for any manager anywhere to lash out at employees like this.
Yeah.
We wouldn't lash out at our staff like that. You don't.
No.
It's not good form to hash these things out in public. Some people will defend it because it's Musk, and this is just not appropriate behavior regardless. So I hope they work it out. I'm glad he apologized. And again, he should strongly consider what he said he was going to do, which is put a CEO in charge of this company rather than micromanage it while doing it all publicly on Twitter itself.
Yeah, and by the way, I say the same thing there are all these disputes that happen at journalistic institutions where people are sniping at each other on the internet, on Twitter, when they work together. I think that's inappropriate as well. I mean, again, it's not about censoring people. It's about
100%.
It's a workplace issue.
Yeah, when that happens in media institutions, the Washington Post, New York Times, this whole fighting you're not. It's bad. Don't do it. Not supposed to do it. You have your disagreements behind closed doors or in the structure of your debate-style television show.
Absolutely.
It's a little different.
It's always a pleasure, Robbie, and I'm glad that we can maintain such cordiality both on and off screen on these Twitter streets.
Now you heard it here first.
All right, we'll have more Rising for you right after this.